Have you ever wondered if animals remember us the way we remember them? Because what happened on that foggy morning at the waterfront will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty, memory, and the unbreakable bonds forged in war. Picture this. Dawn is breaking over a deserted pier. The world is still half asleep. An old man sits on a weathered bench, and in his arms is a German shepherd that doesn't belong to him. At least, that's what everyone believes. But in about 60 seconds, the police are going to arrive with weapons drawn, and this peaceful scene is about to turn into something nobody could have predicted. The morning started like any other. The harbor was wrapped in mist, the kind that muffles sound and makes everything feel dreamlike. The old veteran, his hair silver and his posture bent from years of carrying invisible weight, had come to the pier for solitude. Maybe to think. Maybe to remember. Maybe just to breathe air that didn't smell like the nursing home where he spent most of his days now. He wasn't expecting company, but then, out of nowhere, paws thundered across the wooden planks. A massive German shepherd appeared through the fog, running at full speed. The veteran barely had time to brace himself before the dog crashed into him. Not violently, but desperately, like someone diving into the arms of a person they thought they'd never see again. The dog wasn't barking, wasn't aggressive. He simply pressed his entire body against the old man's chest, trembling, whimpering, softly, as if saying, "Finally, finally, I found you." The veteran was confused, maybe even a little frightened at first. Whose dog was this? Why was he acting this way? But something stopped him from pushing the animal away. Something in the shepherd's eyes, something familiar in the way he leaned into him, seeking comfort, offering protection. So the old man did what felt natural. He wrapped his arms around the dog and held him hoosed, Eldim. And for a few precious moments, the pier was silent, except for the sound of waves lapping against the dock and an old man whispering, "It's okay, boy. I've got you." Then the sirens shattered the peace. Police cars came screaming down the access road, tires screeching as they skidded to a stop. Doors flew open. Officers poured out, radios crackling with urgent chatter. Within seconds, the entire pier was surrounded. At least 6 deputies formed a semicircle around the bench, hands resting on their weapons, eyes locked on the scene before them. Leading the response was a woman in a tailored gray suit, the kind of supervisor who'd seen everything and trusted nothing. Her expression was hard, calculating. She surveyed the situation with the efficiency of someone trained to identify threats instantly. And right now, in her assessment, the threat was the old man holding their missing police dog. "Step away from the animal," she commanded, her voice cutting through the fog like a blade. "That dog is Sheriff Department property. We don't know what you've done to compromise him." The veteran looked up, startled by the sudden aggression. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just sitting there. But the officers didn't see an innocent old man. They saw an unknown variable interfering with a highly trained service animal. That made him dangerous. "Sir, I need you to release the dog immediately," another officer barked, moving closer with cautious, measured steps. The shepherd's ears flattened against his head. He didn't move away from the veteran. Instead, he pressed harder against him, as if trying to merge their bodies into one. His eyes dotted toward the approaching officers, and a low, rumbling growl built in his throat. The supervisor's jaw tightened. This wasn't right. Police dogs don't bond with strangers. They don't refuse commands. They don't protect people they've never met. Something was very wrong here, and she needed to regain control immediately. She stepped forward, her boots echoing on the wooden planks. "Officers, prepare for canine engagement protocol. If the subject doesn't comply, we may need to use force." One of the younger deputies hesitated. "Mom, the dog doesn't appear to be in distress. He's not acting like he's been stolen or abused. Which is exactly why this situation is dangerous," she snapped back. "A trained police dog behaving this way toward a civilian is a red flag. We secure the animal first. Ask questions later." The veteran slowly raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "Please, I don't understand what's happening. This dog just ran up to me. I didn't take him. I didn't call him. He came to me." The supervisor ignored his explanation. She'd heard every excuse in the book. What mattered now was getting her canine unit back under control. She positioned herself directly in front of the bench, eyes locked on the German Shepherd. Then she gave a command that should have ended everything right there. Canine, attack, position. Now, every officer tensed, expecting the Shepherd to spring into action, to obey the command that had been drilled into him through thousands of hours of training. That's what police dogs do. They obey. They don't question. They execute commands without hesitation because lives depend on it. But the Shepherd didn't move. He didn't even acknowledge the order. Instead, he did something that made every officer present freeze in disbelief. He turned his body, placing himself as a physical barrier between the veteran and the supervisor. His stance shifted into something protective, defensive. His lips curled back slightly, not in aggression, but in warning. Don't come any closer. Don't touch him. The supervisor's face went pale. In her entire career, she'd never seen a canine openly defy a direct command. It violated every principle of their training. It broke the fundamental trust between handler and dog. Canine, engage. That is a direct order, she shouted, her voice rising with a mix of anger and genuine concern. The Shepherd responded by growling louder, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the morning air. He didn't move toward her. He moved closer to the old man, tucking himself against the veteran's legs, shielding him with every ounce of his 70-pound frame. One of the deputies whispered urgently, "Ma'am, he's protecting the civilian. He's treating us like the threat." The supervisor's mind raced. How was this possible? This dog had been in their unit for 3 years. Impeccable record. Perfect obedience scores. Never once had he shunned confusion about commands or allegiance. Yet now he was acting like this stranger was the most important person in the world. The standoff stretched into painful seconds. Nobody moved. The officers didn't dare advance with the dog in such a protective state. The veteran sat frozen, afraid that any movement might trigger violence. And the Shepherd remained locked in position, a living wall between the man he was guarding and the people he once served. Finally, the supervisor lowered her weapon slightly, not because she was giving up, but because she needed answers. Firing questions instead of bullets might actually get her somewhere. "Sir," she said, her tone shifting from commanding to investigative, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened here." From the beginning, the veteran swallowed hard, his voice shaky with age and confusion. "I was just sitting here, watching the sunrise. I do that sometimes when I can't sleep. The memories, they keep me up at night." He paused, glancing down at the dog pressed against him. Then this beautiful animal appeared out of nowhere. He didn't attack me. He ran straight into my arms, like he was being chased by ghosts. "And you've never seen this dog before?" the supervisor pressed. The old man hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? Had he seen this dog before? Looking into those deep brown eyes, feeling the warmth of the animal's body against his, something tugged at the edges of his memory. Something ancient and painful. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "There's something about him. The way he moves, the way he looks at me. It feels like I should know him, but I can't place it." The supervisor studied the veteran more carefully now. His clothes were worn but clean. Military surplus jacket, faded but well-maintained. Posture of someone who once stood at attention but whose body had been broken by time and hardship. The weathered hands of a man who'd worked with them, fought with them. "Were you in the service?" she asked. The veteran nodded slowly. "Army. Did 2 tours overseas. That was a long time ago, though. Different life." "Did you work with dogs?" The question hit him like a physical blow. The veteran's eyes clouded over, and for a moment he was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere hot and dusty and filled with a constant threat of violence. Somewhere he'd tried desperately to forget. "I had a partner," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "A canine partner. Best soldier I ever served with." The supervisor leaned in. What happened to him? The veteran's hands began to shake. The Shepherd immediately responded, pressing his nose against the man's palm, offering comfort without being asked. It was such a specific gesture, so perfectly timed, that several officers exchanged confused glances. There was an explosion, the veteran continued, tears beginning to form in his weathered eyes. IED took out our entire patrol. I woke up in a field hospital 3 days later. When I asked about my partner, about my dog. They told me he didn't make it. They said he died in the blast, that they recovered his body. He stopped, overcome with emotion. I've carried that guilt for 15 years. That I survived and he didn't. That he died protecting me and I couldn't save him. The supervisor felt her certainty wavering. She gestured to one of her deputies. Pull up the file on this canine. I want his complete history, where he came from, how he entered our program, everything. The deputy pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. After a moment, his face registered shock. Ma'am, you need to see this. He turned the screen toward her. The supervisor read quickly, her expression shifting from skepticism to disbelief. According to this, our canine was found wandering in a combat zone overseas, approximately 15 years ago. He was severely injured, suffering from blast trauma. Military veterinarians treated him, and when no handler claimed him, he was transferred to a rehabilitation program. Eventually, he was brought stateside and entered into law enforcement training. She looked up at the veteran, then down at the dog. His original designation was Canine Delta. Military working dog, explosive detection unit. The veteran's breath caught in his throat. Delta, he whispered. That was his name. That was my partner. The shepherd's entire body reacted to hearing that name. His tail, which had been still, began to wag slowly. He lifted his paw and placed it deliberately on the veteran's knee, a gesture so specific and intentional that it couldn't be coincidence. The old man covered his mouth with both hands, sobbing openly now. I taught him that, when I was having panic attacks. When the stress got too much, I trained him to put his paw on me, to ground me, to remind me I wasn't alone. He looked at the dog with complete recognition now. It's really you. They told me you were gone. They said I'd never see you again. The shepherd responded by climbing fully into the veteran's lap, despite being far too large for such a gesture. He didn't care about size or propriety. He had found the person he'd been searching for, and nothing else mattered. The supervisor stood motionless, watching the reunion unfold. Every rule, every regulation, every protocol in her manual said she should separate them, secure the dog, file the paperwork. But standing there in the morning fog, watching an old soldier weep into the fur of the partner he thought he'd lost forever, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Stand down, she ordered quietly. All of you, step back. The deputies complied immediately, creating space around the bench. The supervisor approached slowly, non-threateningly, and knelt down to eye level with the veteran. Sir, our records show this dog has been an exemplary member of our unit. But it's clear now that we've had him under the wrong assignment. He was never ours to keep. He was always yours. The veteran looked at her through tears. I can't take him. I live in a small apartment. I barely manage on my pension. I couldn't give him the life he deserves. The supervisor smiled, the first genuine warmth she'd shown since arriving. Then we'll help you figure it out. But I'm not separating you two again, not after seeing this. She stood and addressed her team. This canine is being retired from active duty, effective immediately. Medical retirement due to rediscovery of original handler. I'll handle the paperwork. One deputy spoke up. Ma'am, he's one of our best dogs. Are you sure about this? The supervisor looked at the veteran and Delta, still wrapped in each other's arms, and nodded firmly. I've never been more sure of anything in my career. Some bonds aren't meant to be broken, and we were wrong to keep them apart. As the officers began to disperse, returning to their vehicles, the morning fog started to lift. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting golden rays across the pier. The veteran sat with Delta, both of them finally at peace, finally home. The supervisor paused before leaving, turning back one last time. Sir, what you two survived together, that kind of loyalty doesn't fade. It doesn't expire. Thank you for your service, both of you. The veteran could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak.